Barbara fondly, and what a great woman of God she was. Where do I start to honour a true woman of God, though? Where do I start? Like Barbara, how should I say Auntie Barbara? She was my auntie. She married my Uncle Keith. She was influential in a great number of people's lives, always going the extra mile to keep anyone in need. Passing on her incredible knowledge of the Word of God in many Bible studies at Bridge Street Methodist Church, which she did. She had a thirst for learning and enjoyed travelling the world with her family, including Hong Kong, Australia, America, you name it, she's been there. Barbara was born on 5th of October 1933 in Stoke-on-Trent. But not many people knew that her family originated from the Isle of Man. And she was proud of her Max background in Douglas. Her father was in the army and was the only soldier in his unit to return from the conflict in Egypt. It led him having undiagnosed PTSD. So her childhood wasn't a happy one, but we know Barbara. Barbara had 4 children, twins, Debbie, Gail, Nigel and Craig. She was extremely proud of her children and their grandchildren. In particular, probably Nigel became a heart surgeon. She met my Uncle Keith at Rupert Street Chapel, and they spent over 50 years serving their Saviour together. Although Barbara was a very intelligent woman, she was not renowned for her cooking skills. Except, it was said on Friday, except for apple pie and butterfly buns. So everything else, I think, came out black. I think Janet got the same lesson. I'm not going there. When we went on a honeymoon, the gravy ended up in the dustbin, put it that way. But Barbara's cooking skills weren't so good. She did on one occasion at Cliff cook a full Sunday dinner for the church youth group while camping from a caravan, which is now being feed. She did that, cooking for the youth. Also, her driving skills, also a constant headache for Keith. It was. She once reversed into a JCB, which is not very big, is it? And a favourite bollard in her works car park that she was drawn to on numerous occasions. She was. Barbara loved to attend Christian conferences like Cliff College, Keswick and Grapevine, studying tapes and all that. And it was in those days, as it was in those days, tapes from meetings and seminars long after she got home. Before coming ill in 2016, Barbara spent a lot of time with her granddaughter Mia, encouraging her to have a love for learning. But once, while looking after Mia, gave her a drink of apple juice, so she thought. Maya complained, saying it doesn't taste like apple juice, as Barbara would just say, get on with it, and made her drink it. In fact, it was olive oil. Very nice. So that was Barbara. I've just got one memory of having a time of prayer. I think it was at Grapevine. Christina was ill. Barbara started to pray for her daughter, Crystalline. But it wasn't Crystalline, it was Windeline. She named her Windeline, and since then we've always called Crystalline Windows. And that's been her nickname since then. And plus, I've also got just one thing to complain about Auntie Barbara. When we were kids, Uncle Keith would come round to our house at Christmas, bring us all 5 of us 50 pence and an orange. I weren't too bothered about the orange, but the 50p were all right. But the 50p went a long way in those days. Then he married Auntie Barbara, and all that stopped. Still not forgiven her yet. Barbara spent her last days in Blackwell nursing home, suffering from the cruel illness, dementia. On one of Janet's and myself visit, we attempted to do communion. I did a small prayer, then Barbara started. Half an hour later, still going on at it. She was. She never stopped. Don't think we managed to finish communion, but her prayer were amazing and understandable. She'll be fondly remembered by many people for the love she had for her family, the people she helped during her life, like Maggie, Christina and their family, and even a tramp near Cliff College, but most of all, their unfailing love for God that she served. That's my bit. I think is it me now? Oh, no, sorry.
Craig has prepared some reflections on his mum's life, and I'm going to read it on his behalf. Many of you may not know my mother. Actually, very few knew her well. She was a very intelligent but proud woman who loved helping others but rarely asked or accepted help from others. Mum was born in Stoke-on-Trent on the day that the Nazi Party introduced the Editor's Law, which banned Jews from journalism and promoted only Aryans. The party was growing to power quickly, and by the time that she was 6, the Second World War was a month underway. Mum was born to an army sergeant, Bernard, and a machine operator, Isabel. Isabel, her mother, was born Douglas in the Isle of Man to Stanley Quirk and Elsie Maud Crellin, but had to leave the island under a cloud. Mum was proud of her Manx history, but described her grandmother as a bit of a one, whatever that meant. Mum grew up with a love of learning. She excelled in school and often told the story of when she walked into class to find her seat was a detached leg. When told to sit, she exclaimed, "I can't, miss, my chair is broke." Her teacher looked at her with scorn and declared, "No, it's not, sit down." To which Mum hoisted up the chair in one hand and the leg in the other and replied, "It is broke, miss, look." Another stern look came her way and the teacher declared, "It's not broke, it's broken." And she was forced to write the word broken multiple times to ensure she remembered. It clearly stuck, as many visitors to my childhood home would no doubt remember how many times she called me up for not speaking properly. Not sure it helped me, but her love of the English language certainly did help my eldest daughter, who by the age of 3 was writing words neither I or Laura could spell now. Mum did not have the easiest of childhoods. Her father served in Egypt with the army and on his return had become a very different and difficult man. Today he would have been diagnosed with PTSD, but that back then the world was a different place. He was an alcoholic gambler who could be incredibly cruel and unkind when the drink took hold. Mum spent a significant amount of time with her grandmother and her aunt and attended the local Methodist church, which played a huge part in her life later. Mum took up cycling to get away from the home and spent a lot of time with the local cycling club, which had members from Chesterfield, and so she would visit them regularly and eventually moved to Rupert Street in 1952, when she was only just 19. She married and in 1956 had my sisters Gail and Debbie, then 7 years later in 1963, my brother Nigel. Mum was very committed to her family, but her marriage was becoming challenging and eventually it failed. Mum was a member of Rupert Street Methodist Church along with Mick Stanley and a few others, but my sisters were attending Bridge Street youth groups and she got to know many there, including my dad Keith. That relationship blossomed and soon they were married and I came along in August of 1970. Mum had 10 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. Don't look at me, I'm too young for that yet. In my own children, I often see her, that determination and strong independence, with a heart that yearns to help others, great values they have inherited. Mum was so proud of my brother when he ventured into medicine. She admired his academic achievement, of course, but she was overjoyed that what he was doing was going to help others. Similarly, when Laura and Gail went into nursing and Debbie went into teaching. We saw that same pride and tears recently when Mia told her that she had achieved excellent A-level results and was going to Durham University to study politics and history. Mum and Dad were a great team. Mum wasn't the easiest person to live with. She carried a lot of baggage from her childhood that haunted her right into later life. My dad needed a lot of patience at times, but she had a heart of gold and would help anyone if she could. He must have loved her, as she crashed every car he owned and couldn't cook to save her life. Every meal was a different flavour of charcoal. There are a few here who Mum reached out to in their times of need. She became able to share some of the experiences she'd had as a child, and I have heard from many here how knowing someone really understands what you are going through helped tremendously. When my dad's sister Joan, Ben's grandma, became ill with breast cancer, I remember the trips to the hospital with her, and Mum was there with her when she passed. Gary's father passed suddenly. Mum committed herself to helping his widow, Maggie. When Christiana became ill with cancer, Mum, along with Mick Stanley and many in the church, did all they could to help the family. Back in 1981, Mum was helping run the youth club. A young, scruffy-looking kid, about 11 years old, came tearing in through the door, quickly followed by a pursuing and out-of-breath police officer. This young man had been throwing stones through the window of the old factory in the village. While many may have seen him as trouble, Mum saw a little victory. The church was reaching out to the ones that needed it. Mum went on to take this young diamond in the rough, camping and on trips to London, and fed him enough food to sink a ship. I'm proud to say 45 years later, my best friend Mark Booker is here and loved by so many. There are many other examples I'm sure you could all share with me where Mum lived her faith in the open, helping others wherever she could. Even her chosen profession, a visiting officer with the DHSS, was all about helping those that could not help themselves, visiting vulnerable people in their homes, ensuring they had enough to live. Mum's faith wasn't without substance, though. In the fine tradition of John and Charles Wesley's Holy Club, an Oxford University group dedicated to methodical study, prayer and helping others, hence the name Methodists, Mum's intelligence and confidence to speak made her Bible studies eye-opening at times. Lara and I recall well the days and days of work she would put into researching the background to her topics for the Wednesday night Bible study. She was determined she would understand what she was preaching completely before sharing. She had to grasp the background, the context, the political and social standards at the time of the subject matter, and the changes in society today in order to make it relevant. Mum obviously believed the Bible was a great source of knowledge, but would say, if you only eat beans, you are going to be unwell. So she read extensively, both with Christian writers in historic literature, to further enhance her understanding. She had the largest collection of Cliff College tapes seen anywhere outside the library there. I would often go home and she would have her notepad in hand, and usually the Matthew Henry's commentary or the like, listening to a terrace meeting from 10 years prior where she felt there may be some learning to be had. Mum loved and was dedicated to the church in Pilsley, but unfortunately many of you were robbed of her amazing insights when she was struck with a stroke back in 2006, which affected her memory. She would cry because she couldn't remember Louisa's name at times, and it removed much of her confidence. It didn't stop her learning, though. Reading wasn't as effective after her stroke, but she travelled so many places to experience life and culture elsewhere. Mum started her love of travelling with a trip to Paris in 1977, then Sicily, then Israel, Egypt, Turkey, Malta, United States of America, Canada, Caribbean, Bahamas, most of Europe and Australia. Mum loved going to China and learning about the culture there where her daughter-in-law, Wai came from. The highlight of her trip was meeting up with Nigel and Wai in Hong Kong. Her last holiday in 2016 was with Laura, myself and the girls, a trip to Walt Disney World in Florida, where she had done so many times before. We had a wonderful time. However, 2 days after we returned, she had a second stroke, and this one was much more debilitating. She lived the last 10 years of her life with the dreadful vascular dementia, a vile disorder that takes away a little bit of the person every day. I know others here are going through this experience, and you all have my prayers and love, as I know how soul-destroying it is to go through. Mum passed away peacefully on New Year's Eve, and we are here celebrating her life almost exactly 1 year to the day since we remembered my dad here. Like Colin, who we rightly remembered and celebrated here last week, Janet and Tony, Vera, Jeff, Brian and many others, my parents were both wonderful stewards of the church here in Pilsley. They have passed the baton to us all to continue the great work they did, and I am sure, like Michelle, Tim, Louise and Martin last week, they have inspired me to change the things I can, not accept the things I can't, but to fight for what is right and fair with the same steely determination they did.